The most formidable naval weapons of World War I were Germany's submarines, also known as U-boats. Britain's blockade across the North Sea and the English Channel cut the flow of supplies, food, and fuel to Germany during World War I. Germany responded by deploying its submarines to destroy neutral ships that were supplying the Allies. They were Germany's only weapon of advantage, as the British Navy effectively blocked German ports to shipping. Armed with torpedoes, U-boats were capable of sinking merchant ships while submerged, or could even surface and attack with its powerful deck gun. In May of 1916, construction began on a Type 3 U-boat, UB-65, at the Vulcan-Werke shipyard in Hamburg. Weighing in at over 500 tons, UB-65 was a formidable weapon. Armed with 5 torpedo tubes, she carried 10 torpedoes, had a crew complement of 34 officers and sailors, and was armed with a powerful 8.8-centimeter gun. Despite being heavily armed and possessing the latest in German technology, UB-65 was also carrying with it a curse. In today's episode, we will be looking into the curse of UB-65. In May of 1916, construction began on a Type 3 U-boat and was given the designation UB-65 at the Vulcan-Werke shipyard in Hamburg. From the very beginning, she was considered an unlucky vessel. During construction, a series of accidents killed 5 workers and injured several others. Sailors in general are a superstitious lot, and were being highly suspicious and were reluctant to sail. Yet the ship was badly needed, and, despite the ominous signs of impending doom, was launched. Just a week after setting sail, a steel beam was swinging into position when, without warning, it crashed to the floor, killing 2 men. A series of disasters continued to plague the U-boat when, during the boat's first dive, one of the crew, for no apparent reason, jumped overboard. The captain continued the mission as if nothing had happened, but when he tried to surface, the submarine would not rise. Seawater began seeping into the ship, soon reaching the batteries and causing them to give off toxic fumes. The captain eventually managed to bring the vessel to the surface, but the crew were nearly dead from suffocation. In January 1918, UB-65 sailed into the English Channel in search of enemy shipping. Before she submerged beneath the waves, the starboard lookout on the conning tower spotted a person on deck directly below him. This made little sense. How could anyone be out on deck with all the hatches locked down? As the figure looked up towards the conning tower, the lookout saw that it was the ship's previous second officer who had been killed in an explosion during the ship's maiden voyage. The lookout's terrified shouts brought the captain to the tower, where he also witnessed the apparition before it vanished. When UB-65 was back in port undergoing repairs, a crew member rushed up to the bridge to report he had seen the ghost of the dead officer come on board. The captain and others thought he was hallucinating, but went to investigate. They found another panic-stricken seaman, who also reported seeing the ghost of the officer. He recounted how he had seen the apparition float up the gangplank towards the bow. The figure stood there for a few seconds before vanishing. The submarine had now gained a reputation for being haunted, and no one wanted to be part of its crew. The German authorities, in an attempt to put a stop to the rumors, sent another captain to investigate and take command. Yet he also became convinced that the men of the UB-65 were telling the truth. The ship was taken out of service, and remarkably, a Lutheran pastor was asked to exorcise the vessel. The ship returned to sea and seemed to be free of ghostly occurrences. In May 1918, however, while cruising off the coast of Spain, the first officer reported seeing an unknown person enter the torpedo room, yet when he went to investigate, found no one there. Shortly after this, the torpedo gunner went insane, claiming the ghost would not let him be, and like a previous crew member, threw himself overboard and drowned. The end for UB-65 came in July 1918. According to United States Navy records, it was reported that, while returning from patrol, the U.S. submarine L-2 observed what Captain Paul Foster first took to be a buoy on the horizon. Moving closer, Captain Foster found that it was actually a German submarine, only later to be identified as UB-65. It was listing heavily on the water's surface, seemingly disabled. Forster guided his sub around it, hoping to line up a torpedo shot. But before he could do so, the crippled vessel was torn apart by a huge explosion. UB-65 rose up on its bow and sank. There were no survivors, and no bodies were ever recovered. The cause of the explosion was not known. This concludes today's episode of the Paranormal Report. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel. It is due to your continued viewership and support that we are able to bring you interesting and informative videos like this. The team here at the Paranormal Report really appreciates your support.